your reaction to the news coming out so far that this appears to be one shooter who took his own life after gunning down a bunch of defenseless school children.
Megyn, you laid it out perfectly in the preamble. I mean, this happens all too often. And look, going back to 1966 and the University of Texas clock tower shooting where Charles Whitman went up into a clock tower in August of 1966 and gunned down a bunch of co-eds, which is generally considered the first quote-unquote mass shooting that begun the need and the nexus for SWAT in this country. It's just a sad, sad situation. Look, I think right now the number one thing, the focus is, was this a conspiracy or was this a lone wolf actor? And you described the disaffected, disenfranchised outsider that typically fills the bill in these things. Yes, there'll be a history of mental illness. Yes, there'll be questions on how did he get his hands on a semi-automatic rifle. There's going to be questions about how did we not notice this with all the red flags that appear to be available. But Megyn, we live in a country that treasures and prizes our civil liberties. We don't want martial law. And at the same time, how does this happen? How does a church and a school with young children in it get targeted and so many people either wounded or lost their lives this morning? Horrible, horrible tragedy.
Liz, you're a reporter in Minneapolis and Minnesota. This is unbelievably tragic, and parents can't get their arms around it, whether their child was involved or not. But the reporting we're hearing is that this is the second day in a row where a Christian school was targeted, that there was another Christian school targeted yesterday 4 miles away from this, or a Jesuit high school?
Yeah, actually, Megyn, this is now the fourth shooting that has taken place in Minneapolis in less than a 24-hour period. We've had 3 fatal shootings in a 12-hour period before this horrific act of violence at this Catholic school in Minneapolis. But you're right, there was a mass shooting just yesterday outside of Cristo Rey High School, which is another Catholic school. At this point in the press conference that just wrapped up here on scene, they did say they did not see any sort of connection between these other shootings. But one Minneapolis police officer told me this morning, in his opinion, this has been the darkest 24 hours in Minneapolis history. Keep in mind, this is a police force down nearly 40% after what happened after the George Floyd incident in 2020. These cops are already really stretched to the limits, and to see these horrific scenes unfolding in southwest Minneapolis this morning, absolutely heartbreaking. And I'll be honest, this is actually where my son attended preschool when I lived in Minneapolis for more than 10 years. So really kind of personal for many of us here as well. And still so many answers, but it's hard to even imagine. School starts on a Monday. Tuesday morning, there's a mass where all the kids go, all the little kids, the big kids, they're all there for mass each and every morning. It's a terrific school, and I can't say enough about the good people there. And gunfire erupts through the windows at these children. Again, as you said, we have 2 children dead. I've been in touch with sources at both the Hennepin County Medical Center and Children's Hospital in Minneapolis. They are treating multiple victims on scene. It did come in originally as up to 20 victims, and that seems to be the case. It sounds like multiple victims are in critical condition at this point, and they are in the most serious areas of the hospital, being treated. And again, the gunman seems to have killed himself right in the parking lot there, according to what we just heard in the press conference.
Do we know, Liz, whether this is a level 1 trauma center where the kids have been brought to?
Yeah, there's both two facilities that both are able to handle these types of calls. But in my correspondence with my sources at Hennepin County Medical Center, they've said they were kind of overwhelmed, previously with the gunfire that has erupted in the city. So they were doing their best to scramble and get in. It sounds like to treat these children. Just absolutely horrific to think about.
I'll be back to you one sec, because I have questions about the church too, especially since you've got a personal connection to it. Brandon, the reports are that they're going through the shooter's vehicle, which is in the church parking lot. I guess the police are saying they don't see a connection to the shooting that happened yesterday behind this Jesuit high school. Although I will say in that case, they say a man was killed, 5 men and 1 woman were also injured, and the suspect got away. But the police apparently not thinking that it's the same person who committed this atrocity. You know, there are going to be a lot of parents who are wondering what they can do, what they can do. I mean, even if the school were fortified with a security officer, I'm not sure they'd be outside of the church when the kids went to mass. There's a certain belief, I think, that we have that there are certain institutions that just aren't going to be targeted. And it's baseless, unfortunately.
Well, I think and thanks for having me on, Megyn. I think that this is a culmination of issues that we need to address in society. One is that we do need to fortify these schools. We cannot take it for granted that there's nut jobs out here that's looking to kill innocent people. You know, it hit home to me. My son just went to school today. He goes to a Catholic school and they do mass. And it makes me think about it all the time. What if an assailant decides to come to the school? What security measures do they have in place? This is not a matter of, in many cases, not a matter of if, it's when somebody's going to attempt to assault a Christian institution. And one of the things that I think is problematic is we don't give it enough credit to our efforts to fight against anti-Christian rhetoric. You know, we have anti-Jewish rhetoric, we have anti-Muslim rhetoric, but where is the rhetoric that is targeted against people who attack Christians? It's not a coincidence that this person decided to attack a Catholic school on the day that they do mass. And I think it's a huge problem, but we need to fortify our schools. We need to stop playing games and hoping that a hope and a prayer is going to stop our children from getting shot. We need security at the school. We need police officers at school. I don't care how much of a boogeyman it looks like to certain people. We need people there to be able to rapidly respond. And I'm not saying there's nobody at this school, but I think that schools need to fortify the school a little bit more, and therefore they can be there to respond rapidly and make sure that there's not as many casualties as could be if they don't have anyone who can defend the students and the teachers there.
That's right. That was my first reaction. Where's the good guy with the gun? How did he have such unfettered access to children for so long? And we heard the eyewitness account at the top of the show. Here's another one. This is a neighbor, Bill Beineman is his name. What he was saying is that there's no way he believed it was gunfire because it went on too long. And that's the thing, James. You know, Minneapolis, Minnesota, it's got very tight gun laws. There clearly wasn't a good guy with a gun there because it wasn't just this guy, Bill. Somebody else described what sounded like a pause and a reloading by this guy. There clearly was not a resource officer or a security officer who was armed. I mean, I'm assuming, because I assume that person would have taken this guy out a lot sooner.
Yeah, I'll go back to what Brandon was saying just a few minutes ago. Whether you go back to the Parkland tragedy, which was back in 2018, or the Uvalde, Texas tragedy, where a number of students were shot to death in a school out in Texas, law enforcement has to go to the sound of the guns. The days of being methodical and slowly but surely with shields and advancing slowly toward the threat are over. When these things happen, and look, Megyn, this is way early in the process. Could, and I'm going to throw this out as a supposition, but that's what we do here in the criminology department. Could this be a case of workplace violence? Okay, yes. Could it be a domestic dispute? Okay, yes. But probably, as we look at this, was this something more onerous where somebody targeted this place because of either the religion or the ideology there, the fact that it was a school, or was it some unhinged person that decided they wanted to ratchet up a body count? All those things don't matter until the shooter is down. We know the shooter is down now, and now we've got to do a couple of things. One, make certain that there was no conspiracy afoot there. Is this part of a broader conspiracy where there might be other targets? If we determine that's not the case, okay, now we step back, take a deep breath, and now we figure out how do we prevent the next one? Well, there's lots of ways. You just mentioned it, a school resource officer, a single point entry into these places. And Megyn, I'll put my political hat on for a second. So I just stepped down after 2 terms as a mayor in an upstate village in New York State. And one of the things that we were concerned about a couple years ago, there were credible threats against Catholic churches in communities across New York State. I was pleasantly surprised to go to speak to my own pastor at our own Catholic church here to find out that they already have plans in place. Most places, whether they're synagogues, whether they're Catholic churches, whether they're mosques, they understand that unhinged people, and yes, terrorists, because what is terrorism? It's violence or the threat of same in the pursuit of certain political, ideological, or religious goals. And in this instance, way too early to make that determination, but the fact that there should have been a school resource officer there. There should have been somebody armed and carrying concealed in these places because unfortunately, as Brandon pointed out a minute ago, there are targets and threats, and this is unfortunately the new normal.
What will the effect of the sparring between President Trump and the Federal Reserve be? Can the Fed take the right action at the right time, or are we going to be looking at a potential economic slowdown? And what does this mean for your savings? Consider diversifying with gold through Birch Gold Group. For decades, gold has been viewed as a safe haven in times of economic stagnation, global uncertainty, and high inflation. And Birch Gold makes it incredibly easy for you to diversify some of your savings into gold. If you have an IRA or an old 401k, you can convert that into a tax-sheltered IRA in physical gold, or just buy some gold to keep in your safe. First, get educated. Birch Gold will send you a free info kit on gold. Just text MK to the number 989898. Again, text MK to 989898 and consider diversifying a portion of your savings into gold. So if the Fed cannot stay ahead of the curve for the country, at least you can stay ahead for yourself. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.